James Whitman watched in disbelief as his regional supervisor publicly questioned his black restaurant manager's military ID. The dismissive sneer, the condescending tone, it wasn't just unprofessional. Something deeper was happening. And tonight, James would discover the shocking truth. James had built Coastal Dining Group from nothing into a regional powerhouse with 14 restaurants. He prided himself on knowing operations inside out. But today's incident troubled him deeply. Marcus Washington, manager of their flagship location, had submitted an unusual request. Would it be possible to set aside unsold meals for staff after closing? Marcus had never asked for anything before. The email itself wasn't concerning. What bothered James was regional supervisor Robert Peterson's reaction when the subject came up during today's inspection. "That manager yours is always looking for handouts," Peterson had remarked with thinly veiled contempt. When James defended Marcus's stellar performance, Peterson scoffed. "Says he's some kind of military hero too. Shows his beat-up ID card claiming he's a Marine. Please, have you seen him? Doesn't exactly fit the profile." James's stomach tightened. Marcus had been with the company 2 years. Punctual professional, his location consistently outperforming others. Yet Peterson seemed determined to undermine him. Something wasn't right. James pulled up Marcus's employee file. 34 years old, listed U.S. Marine Corps retired, under previous employment, but no emergency contacts. It was nearly 10 p.m. Marcus's shift ended at 11. Tonight, James decided, he would find out what was really happening. James parked his Audi across from the restaurant service entrance, feeling ridiculous. CEOs didn't stake out their own businesses. Yet here he was, watching his staff filtered out after closing. Marcus emerged last, meticulously checking locks before walking toward the bus stop. He carried a small insulated bag, probably containing the leftover food he'd requested. His posture was impeccable, shoulders squared despite obvious exhaustion. James followed at a distance as Marcus boarded the bus, then trailed behind in his car. The 40-minute ride took them from the affluent coastal district to a modest neighborhood with small apartments and tidy but aging homes. During the journey, James reflected on what he'd observed of Marcus over the past 2 years. The man was unfailingly polite, even when dealing with difficult customers. Staff respected him, but there had been incidents. Customers requesting someone else to handle complaints, or Peterson's random inspections that always seemed to target Marcus's location. When Marcus finally exited the bus, James parked and watched from a distance. The neighborhood wasn't dangerous, but it was far from the upscale areas where most of his management team lived. Marcus approached a small apartment complex, climbing to the second floor. Before he could knock, the door flew open and 2 young children, a boy around 8 and a girl perhaps 6, launched themselves at him. "Uncle Marcus," they cried, clinging to him. Marcus laughed, the first genuine smile James had seen on him all day. Inside, a woman in a wheelchair appeared in the doorway. Though young, perhaps early 30s, her frail appearance suggested illness. "Any trouble today?" James heard her ask. Marcus shook his head. "Nothing I haven't handled before." The door closed, leaving James with more questions than answers. This wasn't just about leftover food. This was about family, but not Marcus's own family, judging by the uncle title. James sat back in his car, contemplating his next move. Whatever was happening, it was clear Marcus Washington was carrying burdens far beyond his job description. For 3 nights, James observed the same routine. Marcus working late, taking leftover food home, caring for the children and the woman in the wheelchair. On the 4th night, James made a decision. The following morning, he scheduled a meeting with Marcus at the corporate office, neutral ground. Marcus arrived precisely on time, his uniform pressed despite having worked a late shift. He sat ramrod straight, his expression carefully neutral. "Do you know why I asked to meet with you, Marcus?" James began. "I assume it's about my request for staff meals, sir. If it's against policy." "It's not about the food," James interrupted. "It's about why a manager with your qualifications is taking the bus home to a 1-bedroom apartment where you're sleeping on the couch while caring for someone else's children." Marcus's composed expression faltered briefly. "You've been following me." "Yes," James admitted. Not my proudest moment. But Robert Peterson's comments concerned me. Marcus's jaw tightened. Peterson has opinions about me. About your military service? Marcus hesitated, then reached for his wallet. From it, he removed a worn military ID card and placed it on the desk. Marines, 8 years, honorably discharged as staff sergeant. James examined the ID. This is what Peterson questioned? Among other things, Marcus replied evenly. James opened his laptop, typing briefly. The woman and children? Sarah and her kids. Her husband was Mike Daniels. My best friend, my brother in the Corps. We served 3 tours together. Marcus's voice remained steady, but his eyes revealed the pain. Last tour, our convoy hit an IED. I pulled him out, but... He paused. I made him a promise as he died. I'd look after them. Sarah's condition? Cancer. Treatment's working, but the medical bills... Marcus shrugged. Mike's death benefits help, but it's not enough. James nodded, turning his laptop toward Marcus. On screen was a military database entry. Staff Sergeant Marcus Washington, Purple Heart, Navy and Marine Corps Achievement Medal with Combat, V for Valor. You never mentioned these in your interview. Marcus looked uncomfortable. Didn't seem relevant to managing a restaurant. And the leftover food? The kids are growing. Groceries are expensive. No excuse, just facts. James closed his laptop. Thank you for your candor, Marcus. Is that all, sir? For now. James replied, already forming plans that would change everything. Back in his office, James dug deeper. Marcus Washington hadn't just served. He'd been exceptional. His unit had been ambushed in Helmand Province. Despite being wounded himself, Marcus had pulled 3 Marines to safety, including his dying friend. The official commendation read, Staff Sergeant Washington's decisive leadership and uncommon valor, while under intense enemy fire, upheld the highest traditions of the Marine Corps. James leaned back, comparing this decorated Marine with the quiet, dignified restaurant manager who never mentioned his accomplishments. Meanwhile, Sarah Daniels' medical records, which he'd authorized Marcus to share, told another story. Stage 3 breast cancer, responded to treatment but requiring expensive ongoing care. The kids, Jamal and Tasha, were thriving in school despite everything, largely thanks to Marcus's stable presence. A larger pattern emerged as James reviewed incident reports from Marcus's restaurant. Customer complaints specifically about Marcus were disproportionately high, yet vague. Unprofessional attitude, or not a good fit for this establishment. When James cross-referenced these with security footage, he saw nothing but a professional manager handling difficult situations with military precision. What he did see, however, was Peterson's increasing interference. The regional supervisor had repeatedly undermined Marcus's authority, questioned his decisions in front of staff, and coincidentally appeared during interactions with wealthy clientele. Most disturbing was an email exchange where Peterson had rejected Marcus's application for the regional director position, a job Marcus was clearly qualified for, citing lack of executive presence. The position remained unfilled 3 months later. James pulled out his phone and scrolled through photos from the company's last charity golf tournament. There was Peterson, arm around James, both smiling. James had considered him a friend, trusted his judgment on operational matters. Now that trust felt misplaced. A knock interrupted his thoughts. His assistant entered with more files. Sir, I found something else. Before joining us, Mr. Washington applied to 7 other restaurant groups. Despite his qualifications, he wasn't hired. The pattern was clearer now, and it made James's blood boil. The quarterly management dinner was a coastal dining tradition, all restaurant managers and corporate staff gathering to celebrate achievements and share strategies. This quarter's event was being held at their newest location, an upscale steakhouse overlooking the harbor. James arrived early, watching as his team filtered in. Marcus entered alone, wearing a crisp dark suit that James suspected was his only one. Several managers greeted him warmly, but others, particularly those close to Peterson, kept their distance. Dinner proceeded smoothly until award presentations began. Marcus's restaurant had the highest customer satisfaction scores and lowest staff turnover, achievements that deserved recognition. As James prepared to announce this, Peterson approached the microphone first. "Before we continue, I'd like to address something," Peterson began, his voice carrying across the room. "Excellence requires authenticity. Integrity." James tensed, recognizing the target of these remarks. "Some of us," Peterson continued, glancing pointedly at Marcus, "claim impressive backgrounds they can't substantiate. Military service is sacred. Those who exaggerate their service dishonor real heroes." The room grew uncomfortably quiet. Marcus sat perfectly still, his expression unreadable. Peterson pulled something from his pocket, Marcus's military ID, which he must have taken from personnel files. "This," he said, holding it up, "looks convenient. Staff Sergeant? Purple Heart recipient? Seems implausible." Marcus slowly stood, his movements controlled. "That's my property, Mr. Peterson." "Is it? Or is it something you printed to embellish your resume?" Peterson's smile was ugly, because I looked into Marine Corps records. Couldn't find any black staff sergeant from your unit receiving these supposed commendations. Marcus's face betrayed nothing, but his hands, flat on the table, tightened slightly. "I've served this company faithfully for 2 years," Marcus said quietly. "My military record is a matter of public record. Yet you can't explain why official sources don't corroborate your claims." Peterson pressed. "Perhaps because you're not what you pretend to be." Several managers looked away, embarrassed by the confrontation. Others watched with uncomfortable fascination. "You've questioned my integrity since day one," Marcus stated calmly. "This isn't about my service record. We both know what it's really about." Peterson's face flushed. "Are you accusing me of something, Washington?" The tension in the room was suffocating. Marcus stood tall, dignified even under attack, embodying the discipline his Marine training had instilled. But James could see the cost, the slight tightening around his eyes, the barely perceptible clench of his jaw. This had gone far enough. "That's enough, Robert," James said, his voice cutting through the tension as he stood. Peterson turned, surprised. "James, I'm simply addressing a matter of..." "What you're addressing," James interrupted, "is your own prejudice, and doing it poorly." A murmur ran through the assembled managers. James walked to the front of the room, taking the microphone. Marcus Washington served with distinction in the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. He received the Purple Heart after his unit was ambushed in Helmand Province. While wounded, he saved 3 fellow Marines, including his dying friend whose family he now supports. James gestured for Marcus to join him. After a moment's hesitation, Marcus complied, his posture military straight. "The reason you couldn't find records, Robert, is because you didn't have proper clearance or know where to look." "I did." James projected a document onto the screen behind them. Official military commendations with the Department of Defense, seal, clearly visible. Staff Sergeant Washington's actions upheld the highest traditions of the United States Marine Corps. James read aloud. That's a direct quote from his commanding officer. Peterson's face had drained of color. I wasn't aware." "No, you weren't," James agreed coldly. "You assumed. You judged. You undermined one of our most effective managers based on your own biases." James turned to address the stunned room. Coastal Dining Group stand for excellence, integrity, and respect. Anyone who cannot uphold these values toward every employee, regardless of their background, has no place in our leadership. He faced Peterson directly. "Robert, my office tomorrow at 9. For now, you're dismissed." As Peterson slunk out, James turned to Marcus. "Staff Sergeant Washington, I believe we were about to present your team with an award for exceptional performance. Would you do us the honor?" For the first time that evening, Marcus smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his face. "Yes, sir, I would." The changes at Coastal Dining Group were swift and comprehensive. Peterson resigned the day after the dinner, sparing James the unpleasantness of firing him. In his place, Marcus Washington was appointed regional director, overseeing 5 restaurants with plans for expansion. But James didn't stop there. He implemented a complete policy overhaul. First, a veterans employment initiative providing career paths specifically for former military personnel. Marcus headed the program, his military experience finally recognized as a leadership asset it had always been. Second, implicit bias training became mandatory for all management, with regular cultural competence assessments tied to promotion eligibility. Third, the family meal program formalized what Marcus had initially requested, ensuring all employees had access to nutritious meals during shifts, with options to take leftovers home rather than throwing food away. Most significantly, James established the Daniels Family Fund, named after Marcus's fallen friend, providing assistance to employees caring for others. Sarah and her children became the first recipients, with medical bills covered and college funds established for both kids. The business impact was measurable. Employee retention improved 40% within 6 months. Applications from qualified minority and veteran candidates increased dramatically. Customer satisfaction scores rose across all locations, but the human impact was immeasurable. At the annual company picnic, James watched as Marcus laughed with his team, the weight of secrecy and struggle lifted from his shoulders. Nearby, Sarah Daniels sat in her wheelchair, her color better, her children playing softball with other employees' families. "You changed everything," Marcus told James privately that day. "Not just for me, but for Sarah, the kids, for everyone." James shook his head. "No, Marcus, you did. I just finally paid attention to what was happening in my own company. The change was long overdue." Marcus smiled. "In the Corps, we say better late than never, sir." 1 year later, Coastal Dining Group received the National Veteran Employment Award. As James watched Marcus accept the honor, he reflected on how much had changed. The company now employed 67 veterans across 23 locations. Their approach had become a blueprint for businesses nationwide, proving that recognizing military experience translated directly to business excellence. This story reminds us how easily we overlook the heroes among us, the decorated veterans who might be serving our meals, driving our buses, or managing our stores. Their discipline, leadership, and integrity are invaluable assets often hidden beneath civilian clothes. What unseen heroes might you encounter today? That cashier, that neighbor, that co-worker. Their stories might surprise you. Have you witnessed discrimination against veterans or experienced it yourself? Share your thoughts below. If this story moved you, please consider liking and subscribing to support more content that highlights unsung heroes in our communities. Because sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply pay attention to the extraordinary people hiding in plain sight.